Hi, everybody. My name is Anna TALBOT, and I'm from the Rhodes University Community Engagement Division. And some of my interests are really around literacy and social justice in particular, but I have a passion for early childhood education. And so that's where my talk is going to really hopefully inspire you around using play in times of crisis and the role of play in our society. Um, so without further ado, I just want to start by positioning play in our society. And internationally, play is recognized as one of the key functions in our society, and particularly in learning in our society. So, as you can see there, I've put the two key international pacts that we've made, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And specifically here, I want to focus on Article 31, which is around the right of children to play. But I mean, there are many different ways that play is recognized as the rights of a child in other different articles of that convention. Arguably, play also features in the Sustainable Development Goals. If we think about the way that children learn and respect the way that children naturally learn, which is through play, this should be an integral part to a good quality education and remediating some of the challenges of early childhood education. So looking specifically there at goal number 4. And so play is really fundamental in our society. And I've highlighted the idea of fun because when children play, they often have fun, and fun instigates intrinsic motivation for continued learning. And so if we are inspired to continue learning, this is how our social development and social mobility continues to be perpetuated in our society. So it's really important that we respect the natural way that children learn in our society. And so play is a child's work. It is not a trivial pursuit. And that's a quote from Alfred Adler, and it's been used by many different theorists and speakers previously throughout history. And so respecting this is central to a child's development. It's not a peripheral activity that children do. Children learn through play, and so it is essential that we respect that mode of learning and use it to its full advantage. And here I'm reminded and inspired by two, artists or leaders in the space. The first is the painting that you see on the screen called Children's Games by Peter Bruegel the Elder. And this was painted in the 16th century. And for me, it describes over 100 different ways that children play and engage and learn through play. But for me, this really epitomizes the fact that play has been around for centuries. It's not a new concept, and the role of play in our society is definitely not something that we're only discovering in the last few years. I'm also reminded, looking at many different ways that children are playing in this picture, by Loris Malaguzzi's poem. So Loris Malaguzzi is the founder of the teaching approach called Reggio Emilia. And his poem is about the 100 languages of children, which explains the different ways that children express themselves and learn, whether it be through mediums of art or play or drama. But play throughout these 100 languages features highly on the agenda of how children learn best. But sadly, this is not the reality of many children, particularly in developing worlds. The reality of children's play opportunities is often thwarted. And just recently, one of our leading organizations in South Africa shared a couple of these quite heart-wrenching articles that have been shared in our media about children who have fallen down a manhole while playing with their friends in a local township, or a boy drowning in a sewage when he was playing, or a 4-year-old child dying while playing in a sandy slope near a freeway. And also in 2020, that 4 children died from food poisoning when they played in a dump site in a nearby city to where I'm located in South Africa. And for me, this is quite sobering in the way that we think about creating play spaces for children that are adequate and accessible for whatever age of child needs to access them. And so we need to start thinking about socially just solutions. So when I speak about socially just solutions, I've got a couple points that I feel really capture what a socially just solution would look like. Firstly, that it respects the rights of children. So it comes from a rights-based perspective. And I've put a little image there of what Article 31 is and how people work collaboratively to realize this right of children. Secondly, in terms of being a socially just response, it should address the challenges of marginalized communities, not excluding the fact that privileged communities may need that intervention or support to overcome their challenges. But in terms of equity, we want to make sure that the playing field, quite literally, is leveled between the haves and the have-not. I also think and that all interventions or solutions should be informed by research and data, and I think that there's lots in data and research to show us how important literacy and play is for children's lives and how that can be implemented in successful ways. It's also important for me for something not only to be sustainable and planned from the beginning, but in order to be sustainable, to be co-constructed with local stakeholders in the community. So looking for that legitimate leadership, not necessarily just the people that hold the titles, but looking for community members who have the knowledge and the expertise and have experienced the challenges themselves in terms of including them in the solution. And so in that, being conscious of the available resources. So using an asset-based approach to being able to overcome the challenges that arise from deficits in providing play opportunities for young children. And underpinning all of this should ultimately be change theory, with the goal of making change and moving from what was to what should be. And so maybe there's an element there of activism and advocacy. And in saying that and thinking about the social just solutions that we may come up with, I thought very specifically around the role of universities and our social responsibility as universities to contribute to the social and economic development of the communities we exist in. And one of the things that has been driving a lot of what we do at Rhodes University is ensuring that we are locally responsive and globally engaged at the same time. So making sure that we are addressing local challenges, using local solutions, but making sure that we are sharing them and engaging with global literature, engaging with global inspiration. And so early childhood development can really be the prime opportunity in terms of cost to benefit ratio of making this change. There's lots of literature to support that. Early childhood is the space and the time to make the most benefit in terms of investment. And so I just encourage you, this was one of the local solutions we came up around play bubbles and how play bubbles can work. And I'll share the resource, the broader resource with you in a moment. But the International Play Association also has a lot to do on play during the pandemic and during crisis and the role of play in catharsis and healing. So different organizations inspire my conceptualization of the role of play in young children's lives and how play can be affected in young children's lives. So things like the forest schooling approach, and I've just put all the different organizations here so that you can go and explore them in coming up with your own solutions. The Reggio Emilia approach, which I spoke about earlier in terms of the 100 languages. Montessori is also very much play-based, early childhood education. And then two organizations that really are leading the way for us in South Africa is A Chance to Play. And here, if you click on that link, you'll be able to find resources of the Play Bubble resource that I shared about play during the pandemic with a broader explanation of it. You'll be able to find a really good resource book that was created during the World Cup in 2020 to ensure that safe play continues and protection of children's rights and protection of children in general in South Africa was upkept. So they're very nice open access resources to draw from in the conceptualization of a solution. And finally, the International Play Association obviously guides writing legislation and bringing together different organizations to ensure that children's rights to play are realized. So if there's anything that you would like to find out more about, please feel free to reach out by email to me. Otherwise, this is our social media that's available to connect up and see what we're doing as a division in terms of early childhood development and community engagement at large. I hope that this has inspired you and informed some of the direction that you can take in creating your social responsibility solution.